I recently made a video where I beat Fallout 4 using only my fists, and that got me wondering, just how much damage can our fists do? This question led me down a rabbit hole where I discovered what may very well be the highest damage possible in Fallout 4. Just to clarify, I won't be using glitches or exploits such as duplicating the Your Special book or items like Yaguai Roast. I also won't be using Creation Club items. I will be keeping this as vanilla and as legit as possible. Now if you haven't already, put the kettle on and make a brew. This is going to take a while. So to begin, we're going to need 10 strength. Why do we need 10 strength? Our fists have a base damage of 8, and for every point of strength, we add an extra 10% to our base damage. For example, at 10 strength, our fists will deal 16 damage. So our first goal is to maximize our strength.
Rhinox, maximize!
Using a weight bench gives you +1 strength. The strength bobblehead gives you another +1 strength. The solar powered perk gives a further +2 strength. The army fatigues, baseball uniform, dirty army fatigues, furry undergarments, or the patchwork sweater and furry pants all give an additional +1 strength and can be worn underneath armour. So what's the best armour to use? A full set of rad powered armour will give you 7 strength per piece when you have 933.3 rads or more, for a total of 35 strength from 5 pieces. This can only be obtained as a random legendary drop from a legendary enemy, and also cannot be acquired on a helmet, as helmets are not in the loot table for random legendary gear, and are only available as unique named legendaries such as the Destroyer's helmet. You may be thinking, why am I not using Grognak's costume, or the Wildman rags? Both outfits give you +2 strength and +25% melee damage that works by giving you another 2.5 strength, but only with melee weapons. However, you lose the ability to equip a chest piece, so with Grognak's and 4 pieces of rad powered armour, we gain 30 strength and 32.5 strength with melee weapons, versus 36 strength with a full set of rad powered armour and a baseball uniform, effectively losing 3.5 strength. What about consumables? We can use Buff Tats for +3 strength, Dirty Wastelander for +3 strength, which is doubled to +6 with the second rank of the Party Boy perk, Grilled Hermit Crab for +2, Mysterious Serum for +5, Psycho Buff for +3,
Nice.
Strong Sludge Cocktail for +5 strength at over 900 rads, and Excel will add another +2, which is 26 strength total from consumables, bringing our strength to 76. The final item that boosts strength is issue number 3 of Scav magazine, which gives +3 strength when you have less than 100 caps, for a grand total of 79 strength, which I believe is the highest strength that can be obtained legitimately in game. With 79 strength and the +25% damage from Psycho Buff, our fists are now doing 89 damage. For comparison, that's more damage than a combat shotgun with the advanced receiver, and this is before we consider perks that increase our damage. Rank 5 of Iron Fist will double our damage. Rank 2 of Rooted will give us another 50% damage when we are standing still. Lone Wanderer, rank 3, adds another 25%. Nerd Rage adds a further 40% when our health drops below 20%. And Bloody Mess gives us another 15% damage. Perks like Gun Fu and Concentrated Fire do not apply to unarmed and melee attacks, so we can't benefit from them. All of the perks multiply each other, which means we are now doing 537 damage, which is more damage than the Fat Man. Our fists have gone nuclear, and we're just getting started. There are also perks given upon completing certain quest lines. Siding with the pack in the Nuka World DLC gives you the Pack Alpha perk for another 25% damage. Destroying Acadia in the Far Harbor DLC gives you the Destroyer of Acadia perk for a massive 4 times damage when your health drops below 20%, but this effect only triggers 20% of the time, unlike Nerd Rage, which will always trigger. And finally, if you destroy Far Harbor, you will receive the Crusader of Atom or Inquisitor of Atom perk, depending on your choices in the questline. Both perks will double your damage when you have 900 rads or more. This means our fists are now doing 5,373 damage. And this isn't even our final form. We can add Preston's Companion perk for another 20% boost when we are in combat with 3 or more enemies. The Brawling mod can be added to the arms of our armour for plus 10% each. The Fire Bally consumable adds another 30% damage when below 25% health. The Overdrive chem
Maximum overdrive!
should add another 25%, but doesn't stack with Psycho Buff or any Psycho chem.
I knew I should have gotten the turbo.
The Fury chem only works for melee damage and doesn't affect our fist damage, but it is also bugged. Upon taking the second rank of Big Leagues, Fury will no longer work. Rank 1 of Big Leagues in Fury only gives you a 1.8 times multiplier versus the 2 times multiplier if you were to max out the perk, so Fury is useless to us. Thank you, Todd.
It just works.
Issue number 7 of Astoundingly Awesome Tales gives you a 5% damage increase at night. This means we lose 2 strength from solar powered, bringing our strength to 77, but the 5% boost makes up for this loss in strength. In fact, 31 strength is the point where our damage increases at night versus 33 strength with solar powered during the day. Using our base fist damage as an example, we can see at 33 strength with solar powered, we deal 34.4 damage. At 31 strength with Astoundingly Awesome Tales, we deal 34.44 damage. 34.44 is greater than 34.4.
Quick maths!
This damage difference increases as we increase our strength. So from this point, we will be using Astoundingly Awesome Tales instead of solar powered. Our final multiplier is the Adrenaline perk found in Survival mode. For every 5 enemies killed in Survival mode, you gain 5% more damage as long as you don't sleep. This maxes out at 50% damage after 50 enemies have been killed. So what is our final fist damage?
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over
15,486 damage. I believe this is the highest fist damage you can display in the Pip-Boy, and so I've answered my original question of how much damage can our fists do.
But I'm not done yet. Call right now and I'll triple the offer.
But what about unarmed weapons and melee weapons? The strongest unarmed weapon is the large Deathclaw Gauntlet with 62 damage at 10 strength, narrowly beating out the puncturing Power Fist, which deals 60 damage. Unarmed also benefits from issue number 3 of Scav for another 10% damage, and if you're wondering, no, this doesn't affect our bare fists, only fist weapons. What about melee weapons? Instead of Iron Fist, melee weapons benefit from the Big Leagues perk, which like Iron Fist doubles their damage at rank 5. Melee weapons do not benefit from the brawling armor mods like fists and unarmed weapons do, so lose a 20% damage boost, but they do benefit from Strong's companion perk, Berserk, which gives you a 20% damage boost when you are below 25% health, which perfectly substitutes for the damage loss from not benefiting from brawling. The strongest melee weapon is the heavy, searing, sharp, rocket Sledgehammer. Dealing 126 ballistic damage and 20 energy damage at 10 strength. Why use the Searing mod at 20 energy damage and not the Shocking mod, which deals 25 energy damage? Because the Shocking mod is bugged and does not correctly multiply with perks like the Searing mod does. Using Big Leagues rank 5 as an example, the energy damage for the Searing mod doubles correctly, but the Shocking mod does not. If we then add Rooted rank 2, the Searing mod is correctly multiplied by 1.5, but the Shocking mod isn't, and the Searing mod now deals more damage. This is true for any melee weapon mod whose description states it adds electrical damage. Only mods which state fire or energy damage are correctly multiplied. And just to clarify, the energy damage for melee and unarmed weapon mods do not scale with strength, only the ballistic damage does. I will also mention that issue number 2 of Scav gives a 25% damage boost to combat knives, switchblades, and also the Disciple's Blade. But even with this boost, none of them will outdamage the Sledgehammer. So, we have our strongest weapons, but what about legendary weapon effects that can spawn on weapons as random legendary loot? There are several legendary effects that increase weapon damage, but the only one that can exceed a 100% damage bonus is the Junkie's legendary effect. A weapon with this effect does 15% more damage for each addiction you are suffering from. There are 11 chem addictions, as well as alcohol addiction, for 12 total, which gives a massive 180% damage boost. However, we use chems and drink alcohol to buff our damage, so we lose our buff out, psycho, excel and alcohol addictions, so only gain a 120% boost, but this is still better than any other legendary effect. We also lose 2 strength from having fury and overdrive addictions, but the damage loss from strength is more than made up for by the plus 30% damage boost from having the addictions. So how much damage will these weapons do in this setup? The Deathclaw Gauntlet will deal 141,889 damage.
That's a lot of damage. How about a little more?
And the Sledgehammer will deal 262,141 ballistic damage.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Plus 9,790 energy damage. I did test Atom's Judgment, for those wondering, and even with the heating coil mod and rank 2 of Nuclear Physicist, it deals less than half the damage of the Junkie's Sledgehammer. Now I know I'm not counting Yaogwai Roast, but I just had to see the damage. Not as high as I was expecting. Turns out, Yaogwai Roast effectively adds 100 strength to your current strength, rather than a straight 500% increase to melee damage. This could very well be the highest damage that can be displayed in the Pip-Boy, but we can go even further beyond. There are 6 game mechanics that I have intentionally not mentioned yet. These are sneak attacks, critical hits, the Blitz perk, power attacks, the awareness perk, and damage that is specific to an enemy or enemy type, for example, the Black Widow or Lady Killer perks that do more damage to men and women respectively. We'll start with sneak attacks. A regular sneak attack does 3 times damage for unarmed and melee. Ninja rank 3 will increase this to 4.5 times damage for unarmed and 10 times damage for melee. However, if we unlock Deacon's companion perk, Cloak and Dagger, before we unlock the Ninja perk, the 20% increase to our sneak attack multipliers will be applied correctly, and our unarmed sneak attacks will do 5.4 times damage, and our melee sneak attacks will deal 12 times damage. It's important to unlock this perk before we unlock the Ninja perk, as it is notoriously glitchy, and you can end up with a smaller sneak multiplier if it is not unlocked first. We can also use Calmex or Calmex Silk to add 2 times damage to the sneak multiplier, but this is actually increased to 2.4 by Cloak and Dagger for the final max sneak multipliers of 7.8 times for unarmed and 14.4 times for melee. It is possible to achieve a 15 times multiplier, but only with the combat knife. The Stealth Blade mod adds 0.5 to the sneak multiplier, but this is multiplied by Cloak and Dagger and will instead add 0.6 to the sneak multiplier for 15 total. Unfortunately, the combat knife's damage is so low that the improved sneak multiplier will not make it out damage the Sledgehammer. But how can we know for sure that our sneak attacks are dealing that much more damage? The only way to be certain is using console commands, which are PC only. Now I apologise for the quality of this footage, as it was recorded on my laptop whose GPU is about as powerful as a potato. I will be doing my testing in the Debug Range, which is a developer testing cell which you can enter using the console command cock debug range. The raiders here have 0 damage resistance, so we will deal full damage to them, making damage calculation simpler. First, I will increase the raider's health using the setAV health command, so they don't die from our stronger attacks. Using our fists at 10 strength and no perks, we should deal 16 damage. Using the getAV health command, we can see that is correct and we do deal 16 damage. Now, when we perform a base sneak attack, we deal 48 damage, exactly 3 times as expected. So far, so good. If we then do a max sneak attack of 7.8 times for unarmed and 14.4 times for melee, again we see that the damage dealt is correct. What about critical hits? The critical hit formula for melee attacks is the paper damage, which is the damage displayed in the Pip-Boy, multiplied by 1.5, plus the base damage, which is the weapon damage including workshop mods and your current strength multiplier, but excluding perks and other damage bonuses, multiplied by your crit multiplier, which is equal to 1 plus your weapon mod bonus, bobblehead bonus, magazine bonus, and the better criticals perk. In our case, the paper damage is 16. The base damage is also 16, and the crit multiplier is 1, which means we should deal 40 damage with a base critical hit. And this is correct, we deal 40 damage. By collecting the melee and unarmed bobbleheads, all 10 Grognat the Barbarian comics, and unlocking the final rank of better criticals, the critical multiplier can be increased to 3.25. This means a max critical hit should deal 76 damage. And this is correct, we do deal 76 damage. What about the Blitz perk? The second rank of Blitz deals bonus damage based on the distance from your target when attacking in VATS. To test this, I first had to determine the maximum range which Blitz works from. To do this, I set the raider's position on the x-axis equal to mine, then moved him closer on the y-axis until I was able to attack him in VATS, which occurred when the distance between our position on the y-axis was exactly 1200. I then performed a blitz attack, and it was exactly 3 times our damage. Power attacks deal 1.5 times the weapon damage that is listed in the Pip-Boy, but cannot be used in VATS. And seeing how we know Blitz, which requires VATS, does 3 times damage, power attacks are of no use to us. So what happens if we do a sneak attack and a blitz attack? It turns out that they multiply each other for 9 times the damage. What about a sneak attack and a critical hit? It turns out that critical hits are additive to sneak attacks. What about a blitz attack and a critical hit? Again, it turns out that critical hits are additive, so it seems conclusive that critical hits are additive at this point. Now what happens if we do all 3 at once? The damage is higher than expected. So what's happening? If we subtract this value from our expected damage, we can see the damage is exactly equal to another sneak or blitz attack. For some reason, the game adds another sneak or blitz attack to the damage dealt, which is bizarre. So what happens if we do a max sneak, max crit, blitz attack? The damage is even higher than we expected, but especially so when using melee. So what is going on? If we subtract the difference from our expected damage, we can see for unarmed it is exactly 10.2 times the base damage, and for melee it is exactly 20.1 times the base damage. The only way I can make sense of this is if you subtract the max sneak multiplier from the base sneak multiplier, multiply it by 1.5, and then add the base sneak multiplier to that, you get the 10.2 and 20.1 times multipliers that cause the damage difference. This explanation is probably wrong.
It's a total fabrication.
And the only way to know for sure would be to look at the source code, or pray to Todd for an explanation. Now what about the awareness perk? Rank 2 of awareness adds a 5% boost to attacks made in VATS. This damage isn't listed in the Pip-Boy, so we need to use commands to see the damage dealt. And it turns out this is correct. The damage is increased by 5%. This is true for sneak attacks and for blitz attacks, however, for critical hits, the damage is less than expected. Subtracting this difference from a normal crit, we can see this is 7.5% of our base damage, which is a 50% increase of the awareness multiplier of 5%, similar to the 50% increase that appears to be happening in the sneak attack multipliers earlier. So it seems that awareness adds this value to the critical hit multiplier and does not multiply the critical hit damage itself. So what happens if we do a max sneak, max crit, blitz attack with awareness? Well, nothing more changes from what was discussed previously. The higher damage resulting from the higher multipliers for sneak and crits, and the extra damage from awareness behaves the same here. Now finally, what about enemy specific damage? Certain perks, magazines and equipment deal increased damage to specific enemies. For example, Dance's companion perk, Know Your Enemy, gives you a 20% damage increase to synths, ghouls and super mutants. It also turns out that Robotics Expert rank 2 gives a 40% damage increase to robots and synths, meaning the highest multiplier against an enemy type is a 1.848 times multiplier against synths. So how does Robotics Expert affect our damage? It seems that Robotics Expert behaves just like Awareness does when it comes to Sneak and Blitz, multiplying their damage as expected. However, like Awareness, it does not directly multiply the critical damage. Instead, it adds to the critical damage in the same manner as Awareness does. The Robotics Expert multiplier is multiplied by 1.5, and that value is multiplied by the base weapon damage, and is then added to the regular critical damage. But when you do a critical hit with Robotics Expert and Awareness, it now adds the base damage multiplied by 0.705 to the normal critical damage, and I have no idea why.
Brilliant! I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
What about weak spots? Most enemies, especially humanoid enemies, including synths, take double damage if they are hit in the head. So is there an enemy that takes even more damage from a weak spot than this?
Yes.
The fusion core of a sentry bot takes a massive 5 times damage. That's more damage than any other specific enemy will take before the 1.4 times damage boost from Robotics Sexpert, which increases this to a gargantuan 7 times multiplier. Can you hit this weak spot in VATS melee? Yes. Yes you can. As we clearly dealt 5 times more damage from this attack. So now we have all this information, it's time to learn the final damage numbers. 116,467,072 damage. This may be the highest damage that has ever been dealt in this game. Perhaps even the highest legitimate damage possible. In the same setup, the Deathclaw Gauntlet deals 22,516,464 damage, and our fists deal 2,638,048 damage. So do our damage calculations match this damage?
The answer is no.
Can I explain why?
No.
Even factoring in the 0.99 times damage multiplier that is applied to your damage during damage calculation, if your damage is more than 6.485 times higher than the enemy's damage resistance, this still doesn't account for the difference. It's also suspicious that these are exactly whole numbers. I guess at this point, only Todd knows what's really happening during the damage calculation.
Who's laughing now? Yes, I was in the chess club.
Now you're probably wondering, can anything in games survive this much damage? Liberty Prime reportedly has 5 million health. But even using cheats to deal ridiculous damage, we are unable to hurt him. Using the creation kit, we can see that Liberty Prime is not only essential, he is invulnerable and cannot take any damage. We also see that he appears to have only 2,205 health. I mainly play on console, and there isn't a mod that removes Liberty Prime's invulnerability, so I made one. All the mod does is remove the essential and invulnerable tags that are applied to Liberty Prime. Using a commie whacker that deals almost 2,000 damage, we can see this is almost enough to kill Liberty Prime, which shows he does only have 2,205 health and not the reported 5 million. What a fucking disappointment. But oh well, we would easily kill him with the Sledgehammer even if he did have 5 million health. Now I do hope the information in this video is accurate. I tried my best to make sure it was, but if not, please do let me know in the comments. But I've been talking for long enough. Thank you for watching. Be seeing you.
Be seeing you.